There is a lot of excitement on the horizon for Texas A&M football in 2025, as year one under Mike Elko was super promising. The Aggies found their new star quarterback, bring back some key pieces, and also made some good additions in the transfer portal. The Aggies are set up for success in 2025, and in today's video, I want to preview them for this season. We're going to talk about how they did last year, their roster, a potential depth chart, and then my personal prediction for them. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and preview the Texas A&M Aggies. So last year, the Aggies were picked to finish 9th in the SEC in year one under head coach Mike Elko. They actually started out the season ranked number 20 in the country and returned a quarterback that many thought could be a first-round pick in Connor Weigman. Unfortunately, that would all go up in smoke as he was terrible against number 7 Notre Dame and they lost 23-13. But A&M would rally, as after that they would beat McNeese State and then go into the swamp and win by 13 against the Gators. Alright, now they were back into the top 25, and after barely beating Bowling Green by 6 points, they then started going on more of a tear and beating more respectable opponents. It first started out with a home victory over Arkansas by 4, and then they absolutely skull-crushed number 9 Mizzou. This was a huge deal for them, and after beating Mississippi State on the road, the Aggies were all of a sudden ranked number 14 in the country and had rallied off 6 straight wins. The playoff was in sight, and it got even better in the last weekend of October. With number 8 LSU coming to town, Kyle Field was absolutely electric, but after a terrible first half, eventually they decided to put in the backup quarterback Marcel Reed, and Reed went crazy. He ended up totally energizing the Aggies team, and they beat a top 10 Tigers team 38-23. This was a marquee win and pushed them all the way up to number 10 in the country. But what goes up must come down, and A&M had a bad end to the season. It started out with a loss on the road against South Carolina as they got killed 44-20. Alright, the playoff probably wasn't happening now. They would have their annual FCS beatdown by beating New Mexico State 38-3, but their final 2 matchups would come against Auburn and Texas. The Auburn game was super close and ended up going to 4 overtimes, where the Tigers eventually pulled through, and this is one of the biggest upsets in the SEC last year. It was definitely sort of embarrassing for A&M, and then they renewed their rivalry with Texas as the number 3 Longhorns came to College Station, but it was a pretty boring game to be honest. Texas won 17-7, and all those people who spent thousands of dollars on tickets went home not thrilled. To make matters worse, they would play in the Las Vegas Bowl and would blow it to USC. While A&M ended up starting out 7-1, they lost 4 of their last 5 games, so it was definitely disappointing. In total, the Aggies went 8-5 with a 5-3 mark in the conference, and everyone was pretty thrilled on how Mike Elko did in his first year. Looking ahead to 2025, he keeps the same staff, as Colin Klein's back at offensive coordinator and Jay Bateman is back as the DC. Marcel Reed would end up passing for 1,864 yards with 15 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, and he also ran for 547 yards and 7 scores. He's got a lot of hype for 2025. At the running back spot, they sort of had a 3-headed monster, as Marcel Reed was obviously doing damage, but both Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels went for nearly 700 yards, and Moss had 10 touchdowns and Amari Daniels had 8. Those two are really good. In terms of the receiver spot, Noah Thomas led the way with 39 catches for 574 yards and 8 touchdowns, and the rest of these guys are sort of supplementary pieces, as Jabari Barber ended up having 38 catches for 381 yards, and then both Jade Walker, Trey Watson, and Cyrus Allen also showed glimpse. They definitely had a receiver by committee approach, but I guess you could say it worked. Torian York led the way with 82 tackles. Nick Scorton ended up leading the team with 5 sacks. Lee II, the blanket, ended up having 10 pass deflections, and then BJ Mays led the team in interceptions with 4. In terms of the 2025 NFL Draft, Texas A&M ended up putting 3 guys into the first 2 rounds, as Shamar Stewart went with the 17th overall pick to the Bengals, Nick Scorton went with the 51st overall pick to the Panthers, and Shamar Turner went with the 62nd overall pick to the Bears. After that, no other Aggie heard their name called. I don't know why Shamar Stewart went that high, as I really didn't think he was all that good, or wasn't all that impressive, but again, I'm not an NFL scout. They also lost Connor Weigman as he transferred to Houston, and obviously they lost some other players, but that was the most notable name. In terms of the guys they brought in, A&M brought in the number 10 ranked recruiting class, which was headlined by 5-star offensive tackle Lamont Rogers, who flipped from Mizzou, and then guys like Keati Armstrong and defensive lineman Chase Sims. This team is loaded with 4-star recruits and guys who can make an impact down the road, and I also like what they did in the transfer portal. In terms of those guys, they grabbed Amari Niblack, a tight end from Texas, who's been around the block. They grabbed KC Conception, one of my favorite receivers from NC State, an edge rusher by the name of TJ Searcy from Florida, former 5-star in some sites Sam Mpemba on the offensive line, and then guys like receiver Mario Craver from Mississippi State, corner Julian Humphrey from Georgia, and a backup piece in Jacob Zeno, a quarterback from UAB. Honestly, I think they got a couple of good transfers, including at that receiver spot, as guys like KC Conception and Mario Craver I think will be pretty exciting to watch, and really will help out quarterback Marcel Reed. In terms of the quarterback spot, the starter is obviously going to be Marcel Reed, who's one of the top quarterbacks in the SEC, and someone that everybody has their eye on. In terms of the backup quarterback, it looks like Miles O'Neal will likely be that guy, and then you also have Jacob Zeno, and 4-star freshman Brady Hart from the state of Florida. The running back position is going to be exciting in my eyes, as Le'Veon Moss returns for this season, and then you get former 5-star Ruben Owens back. He unfortunately got hurt last year, and I really hope he gets an opportunity to play. And I also cannot fail to mention they also bring Amari Daniels back, and he was one of the top backs last year. I really like this Texas A&M running back room, and they really do have depth there. In terms of the starting receivers, at the X spot you'll have Mario Craver, who as I said transferred in from Mississippi State, and then at the Z spot, your other starter will be Terry Bussey, who is a former 5-star. In terms of the slot position, that's where KC Conception comes in from NC State. Obviously, there are plenty of other guys who are coming in, but I'm not going to pretend to project any of that stuff, as I don't know nearly enough about their depth pieces or who's who. As I continue to look through depth charts and different information, I cannot find a reliable source for the depth chart, so I'm not going to waste your time with the offensive line or the defense, as I don't want to lead you guys astray or give you the wrong names. But what sticks out to me is that running back room, as those guys combined with Marcel Reed are going to be super thrilling and exciting to watch. I think the receiver room has a lot of potential, but there'll definitely have to be some kinks that are worked out on the field. As who will emerge as the primary go-to player, I don't know. But how does this translate to wins and losses on the field? That's what you guys are waiting for at this point. And now let's look at their 2025 schedule. The Aggies have sort of an easy start to the 2025 season, as they will play UTSA in week 1. This game will be a night game, and the Roadrunners were really good in the past under Jeff Traylor, but have sort of fallen off the last couple of seasons, so this game should be over by halftime. In week 2, they will play against Utah State, and it's sort of the same story. You have no idea what Utah State team you're going to get, and there's no reason for me to think there'll be any sort of fight in this game, and A&M will cruise to 2-0. Week 3, though, they will get a humongous test, as they will go up to South Bend, Indiana, for a rematch against Notre Dame. The Aggies could not beat them at home last year, so it's going to be really hard to pick them to win on the road. Notre Dame, though, has a couple of question marks, as I don't know who's going to play quarterback for them, and they did lose a couple of key pieces in the receiver room. But Marcus Freeman has proven that he's a really good coach, and they have the best running back in the country in Jeremiah Love. Notre Dame, I think, will be good, and combining that with the home crowd, I say they're going to beat Texas A&M in a close game, and this will give the Aggies their first loss of the season. After that, they'll play against Auburn at home, and in a make-or-break year for head coach Hugh Freeze, he's really got to figure a couple of things out. I'm not sure what this Auburn offense is going to look like, but if Jackson Arnold and Cam Coleman can get going, I think they could be pretty dangerous. But losing one of their best running backs ever in Jarquez Hunter and Keandre Lambert-Smith makes me question this offense a bit. Auburn's also been super dysfunctional, so I'm going to go ahead and say that A&M wins this game. After that, they'll play against Mississippi State, who's trying to figure things out in year 2 under Jeff Lebby. This is probably the second toughest job in the SEC right now behind Vanderbilt, and I don't think it gets much better this year. They have a quarterback battle going on between Blake Shapen and former 5-star Luke Kromenhoek from Florida State, and I wish they'd give Kromenhoek the job, but all reports indicate it'll be Shapen right now. I don't think this Mississippi State team's going to be very good, but maybe, just maybe, they'll break out. Probably not, but A&M probably wins this game. This now puts them at 4-1, going into what should be a top 25 matchup with Florida. Every single offseason, there is a team that blows up and everybody thinks is going to be really good and breaks out, and this year it is the Florida Gators. They returned one of the most promising young quarterbacks in the country in DJ Lagway, and had a ton of freshmen playing last year, so many believe that Florida will get better, and combining that with how they finished last year, it does make sense. But this game is at home, and I think A&M is better. Chalk that up as a W. and in the first half of the season, A&M will be 5-1. Now as we get into the back half of the season, they will finally start playing some road games. Their first one will be on the road against Arkansas, who's honestly in a pretty similar position to Auburn. Taylon Green is back at quarterback, but they lost a couple of key players like Isaac Tesla and Raheem Sanders, so I'm not quite sure who steps up. Also, I just don't think Arkansas is honestly all that good, so I'm going to say A&M wins this game. So yeah, A&M is a real playoff contender going into this matchup against LSU, and like last year, this could end up being a really important game for them. Honestly, I think LSU is going to be pretty solid this year, as I think Garrett Nussmeier is pretty good, and also Brian Kelly's seat is hot and this game is at home. As much as I really do like A&M, I think they're going to lose on the road in Baton Rouge in a really close game. This will give them their second loss of the year, but they still have a chance. Things will not get much easier though, as they then get to start out the month of November on the road against Mizzou. I'm sure Mizzou fans like myself remember how last year's game went. That was the game that showed that Mizzou was not a playoff team last year, and this time the Tigers are at home. Like the LSU matchup, I think this is pretty evenly matched up, and Mizzou does have a couple of question marks in terms of who will step up and be the quarterback and the receiver, but honestly, I give Mizzou a 1% advantage over them in this game, and they get revenge. This will give A&M their third loss of the season, but then I think they bounce back. South Carolina has legit playoff hype under Shane Beamer, and it's all because of their quarterback Lenora Sellers. He's one of the most exciting players in college football for next year, but just like the Mizzou game, I think in reverse, A&M remembers this game last year. It sort of took the wind out of their sails and ruined their season, so I think A&M bounces back with a commanding win over South Carolina and gets themselves back in contention. After that, they'll play against Samford in their annual FCS beatdown, and this will put them at 8-3 going into a huge matchup with Texas. Honestly, it is really hard to pick them to win this game, but I do think it will be competitive. I'm going to say it, I think Arch Manning is a little bit overrated, and I'm not just going to assume they're going to be as good as last year. I think Manning is fine and is a decent player, but Texas lost a lot of players last year, and assuming that they're just going to be as good as last season, in my opinion, is a little bit of a stretch, and also Texas wasn't really challenged that much last year. No, I'm not an Aggies fan or a Texas hater, but I'm sort of in a wait-and-see approach with Texas. Either way, though, I think it's going to be really, really difficult for A&M to win this game, and while I think it'll be close, I'm going to go ahead and give the nod to Texas. That puts A&M at an 8-4 record. Honestly, I could see them going anywhere between 7-5 and 9-3, but honestly, they got a pretty difficult schedule. Texas, South Carolina, Mizzou, LSU, Florida, and Notre Dame should all be ranked when they play, and 4 of those are on the road. I think them going 2-4 against ranked teams in Florida and South Carolina is probably how it's going to go, and then losing to LSU, Mizzou, Texas, and Notre Dame. Maybe they steal one of those 4 road matchups, but for now, I'm going to say they end up going 8-4. They could easily surprise me and go 9-3 and maybe even 10-2, but I just don't think the schedule really works out for them this year. In 2026, I could see them loading up as their guys get a year older and Marcel Reed gets a little bit more experienced, but for now, I'm going to cautiously say 8-4, and that's a good season. It may not be what Texas A&M fans want to hear, but if they can win that bowl game, it gets them the 9 wins, and then prepares them for a potential deep run in 2026. That's my personal opinion, and you might think I'm biased because I'm a Mizzou fan, but I honestly don't really care what happens in college football, so I'm just saying it how I truly do believe it'll happen. But what do you guys think? What did I get right and wrong? Who are some underrated players for the Aggies? And what do I need to know about Texas A&M football for 2025 from an outsider's perspective? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen, including my video about Clemson. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.